Now, it doesn't take much to make a bookworm happy. 3 years ago, while at dinner with friends, us women got together talking about books. Books we have read, and the best place to get books with good value. Suddenly it occurred to us that we should start a book club of our own. My other book club has brought my group of friends so much closer. In fact, we often refer to each other as sisters. Fast forward to a year ago when I thought I should start a book club for my Manzano residents, which turned out to be one of my greatest projects to date. It has been so much fun getting to know the women in the book club and bonding over books. It's always interesting to hear the different perspectives on what we read. Now the next sentence is in italics, and maybe this fellow Edmund Wilson was the one that wrote this statement. As they say, no two persons ever read the same book, and it's signed by Edmund Wilson. So in December, I, along with the members of my other book club, thought it would be fun if both book clubs read the same book, and we all gathered to discuss it. We all enjoyed pizza and salad from Dion's, and most importantly, each other's company. It was a great time had by all, and I believe it is safe to say that both groups are looking forward to another get-together soon. What an evening it was. If you have been on the fence, I think this is an offer to Manzano residents. If you have been on the fence about joining our book club, I say give it a try. You just might find the group to be the highlight of your month. We're moving on to the second item. This is something that may very well be of interest to people. There are changes in the hours that Vanessa is available at the clinic. I have been given the opportunity to assist with the new hire process as well as to lead the annual training for the CNAs. I assume that's a nurses group. And as far as training new hires are concerned, I think I understood Mark correctly. They've hired like about 17 new people, and all of them have to go through a rigorous training. As a matter of fact, I was outside of the chapel, and I saw a class in there, and I saw a board up that was being used for teaching, and it was on venereal diseases. And I said, whoa, what's going on here? Well, I found out from Vanessa that is something that they have to make new hires familiar with. Anyhow, with that said, the hours of the clinic will change slightly. I will always be sure to put a sign on my door when I am out. As of right now, every other Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., the clinic will be closed. That's every other Tuesday from 9 to 2. Starting on 1/28, which is now past us. That's when that started. As of the first Monday and Friday on each month, from 1 to 2, she'll also be closed. I apologize for any inconvenience this may cause. Written by Vanessa Jackson, clinic nurse.
And there's a picture of her little reading group, her reading club, and I know that David and Mary Grace will be interested in this because Pat's picture is in the picture, so she's apparently a member of that club. Your Pat that eats with you all the time, and Carol Summers is there, and then Sally up on our floor, on our corridor, your corridor, Mary Grace. Yeah. she's in that book club as well. And I know that Martha Meister, she said it really is just a great group, and she would just love to invite anybody who loves to read to come and join. The next article on page 2 is written by Judy Liddell. I kind of think Judy is perhaps on this floor. Is she, David? On second floor, Judy Liddell?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
She calls herself the Bird Lady. And she really, boy, does she know a lot about birds. And I love it that she was right. My son will tell me sometimes when he picks us up, I spotted the Roadrunner, and he had a friend with him. He says he's been out in front, and he's all puffed up. He must be. And she said, tell your son he's puffed up, not because he's full of food. He's just cold, and so they inflate their feathers, and that is like putting on a fur coat for the rest of us. If you walk along the sidewalk in the front of the building, you might see one of the neighborhood's greater roadrunners. In the cold weather, it might sit with its back to the sun and the skin on its back exposed to absorb warmth. After warming up, it's ready to set out looking for food. They have a jaunty appearance and often appear comical. They are carnivores, primarily eating lizards, grasshoppers, snails, and in urban areas, they might also eat a small bird if no other food is available. When I first moved here, speaking here to Manzano, I was told that people were afraid that the roadrunners would attack our desert tortoises. However, the tortoises are much too large for them. Before moving into Manzano del Sol, I often saw roadrunners stalking small birds. Once, I started putting out dried mealworms for them. They didn't need to catch birds. In late winter, it always perches up high on the wall, for instance, next to the walking track. It will most likely be the male trying to attract the attention of the female, although they don't seriously start to court until spring. To attract a female, a male roadrunner makes a loud cooing noise. He uses his beak to offer food to the female. If the female takes the food, they become mates and start to build a nest. Males and females look identical and are the same size, so you can only tell by their behavior. They build their nest in a dense bush a few feet above the ground, then line it with grass or feathers. The female lays an average of 3 eggs that hatch after 20 days. By the time chicks are 3 years old, the young birds learn how to run and catch small prey and will follow their parents around, begging.
Where I lived before I came here, we fed hummingbirds, and we thought we had the hummingbird feeders positioned safely from the rollers. Not so. They're cunning. They always found a way to either be up on the roof and come down and get the hanger and the feeder that was hanging under the eaves. And just to show you that what goes around, it comes around, I saw a roadrunner out by our mailbox, and a hawk came down from behind. The roadrunner never saw it, and that was the other side of the story. It was goodbye hummingbird. Goodbye roadrunner.
Oh boy. The next article is a morning prayer submitted by Nancy Agnew. God, Direct my thinking today so that it will be divorced of self-pity, dishonesty, self-will, self-seeking, and fear. God, inspire my thinking, decisions, and intuitions. Help me to relax and take it easy. Free me from doubt and indecision. Guide me through this day and show me my next step. God, give me what I need to take care of any problems. I ask all these things that I may be of maximum service to you and my fellow man. In the name of the steps, I pray. Amen.
By Mary Gruby. I confess I do not know Mary. Perhaps some of you do. It's called Principles of Living. Believe that miracles are possible. Live as if you're free to do what you want. Relax as if everything is going to be okay. Talk to God as if you're being heard. Feast as if you have whatever you want. Work as if money doesn't matter. Learn as if you're a beginner. Love as if you're loving for the first time. And give as if you already have what you need. Mm-hmm. Next is a note from the Transportation Department, the Transportation Supervisor, written by DeJoyce. This is just a friendly reminder to please write down the physical address and the name of the place we are taking you to when you sign up for transportation. Next item is one of two submissions by me. It's a song, Serenade of the Bells. Tell you what governed my choice. February, because of Valentine's Day, is sort of, you think of love. And you also know that there are different kinds of love. There's romantic love, there's love of a parent for a child, and it's been a great topic for songs, I think, from day one. In any event, this is a song. It was popular in the 1950s. As a matter of fact, it was on the most popular charts of songs for about 8 years. And while it was sung by many, there's one I think you'll remember, Joe Stafford. Joe being a woman, Joe Stafford. And I won't try to sing it, but if it sounds like I am, because it's that how I learned it. It's called the Serenade of the Bells. In the sleepy town of San Juanita, there's a story that the padre tells of a gay senor and senorita and the serenade of the bells. Seems they asked the padre for permission to be married early in the spring, but their folks had made just one condition, that the mission bells had to ring. Everyone knew the bells were broken and hadn't sounded for a long, long time. And then one night the village was astounded, for the bells began to chime. Still the bells are broken, goes the story, but if in your heart a true love dwells, they will ring for you in all their glory. That's the Serenade of the Bells. And finally, there's something here submitted by Mary Gruby. It's titled Untitled. It says, guidance is not being told what to do or what not to do. Guidance is God's gift of peace, from which we proceed. The peace dissolves the question, and we do what we do in peace. And apparently the author of this was a gentleman by the name of Hugh Prather.
Well, and here is a poem about apples. How do you eat an apple? Do you bite it? slice it? Do you fry it? Do you dice it? Do you bake it in a pie? Or do you just bake it? Do you cover it with candy or caramel? Such a wonderful fruit. No wonder Adam couldn't resist when we tempted him and God threw him out of his garden. Is it because he wanted all of the apples for himself? There's much more to be said, but I need to take a break to enjoy my big red apple. And that's written by Barbara Noyes O'Neill. So Barbara O'Neill is on our quarter and moved there about 4 months ago.
And she's a bridge player.
And she plays bridge, yeah. Now, Pauline Baker has written just a little thank you note. Many thanks for the sweet remembrance on my birthday. I was blessed by each one. Love you. Thank you. And Rod, here is the other poem which he submitted.
Okay.
Scarlet Ribbons.
May I?
Sure.
Okay, again, I said there were different kinds of love. We heard one about romantic love. This one, I think, is more about love of a parent for a child. And again, I'm sure you will remember the singer, if not the song. Do you remember Harry Belafonte and the Banana Boat song? Hey, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana. Well, this was another one that was sung and made quite popular by Harry Belafonte. It's called Scarlet Ribbons. I peeked in to say goodnight when I heard my child in prayer. And some scarlet ribbons for my hair. All our stores were closed and shuttered. All the streets were dark and bare. In our town, no scarlet ribbons, not one ribbon for her hair. Through the night, my heart was breaking, but just before the dawn was breaking, I peeked in and on her bed and gave profusion lying there, lovely ribbons, scarlet ribbons for her hair. If I live to be 100, I will never know from where came those lovely scarlet ribbons for her hair. You want to take?
And Nancy Agnew has submitted an evening prayer. We moved from the song, which was also a prayer. God, forgive me when I've been resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid today. Help me to not keep anything to myself, but to discuss it all openly with another person. Show me where I owe an apology and help me make it. Help me be kind and loving to all people. Use me in the mainstream of life, God. Remove worry, remorse, or morbid, sick reflections that I may be of usefulness to others. Amen.
This is an introduction to about a new person on the 4th floor. Again, I apologize for not knowing her. Some of you may have met Anne Sbarge, spelled S-B-A-R-G-E. I met Anne in the library the other day. She told me that she truly enjoyed coming to the library because she thought the chairs were very comfortable, tastefully styled, and welcoming just by themselves. The facts are the library is attractive, well organized, and is a delightful asset. Here, anyone can just sit, read, and lose oneself. Anne came to Manzano del Sol in October, but previously her family had moved many times throughout Europe. Anne was born and grew up in France, where she attended a regular French primary school in Paris. École, that's the French word for school. Her mother was from Great Britain, and Anne was bilingual. She learned to speak German under the influence of her family's German maid. Anne's father, an immigrant from Hungary, met his future wife when she was a student in France. When the war started in 1939, he was an interpreter for the British Army, and her mother was working for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in Paris, where Anne often went to visit and meet and watch the actors memorizing their parts.
Wow.
Then in 1939, the sirens howled, the thunder of German bombs made the earth shake. World War II started, and soon it would be time to leave France. Anne's family moved to Norwalk, Connecticut, followed by many changes in locations and high schools. She graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, followed by the University of Tennessee, and a French government fellowship to the Sorbonne in Paris. Later, she worked for the U.S. State Department. During a concert in Washington, D.C., Anne met her future husband, who was training to be a medic. By coincidence, many years later, her son became a medic as well. Anne combined teaching in the prep school in Connecticut with raising 3 children. She moved to Albuquerque because her son, the eldest, is a doctor here associated with the Veterans Administration. She has 2 daughters. The youngest, an artist, also lives in Albuquerque. Her middle child, a lawyer, lives in Massachusetts. Although Anne has only recently moved to Albuquerque to be close to her children, she loves the mountain and is enjoying life here at Manzano. And this is submitted by Judith Binder. And just a quick side note, when you hear the year 1939, and you say, wait a minute, World War II didn't start until 1941, and that late in December. That's for us in this country. When Germany invaded Poland, Poland had a treaty, an offensive-defensive treaty with Great Britain. And when Poland got invaded, that pulled Great Britain in. And although we didn't have any treaty with Great Britain, we were, very close allies because of the number of British descendants here in this country. And so it was not until the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in December of 1941 that the United States became formally involved in the World War II. But World War II really started in 1939. And another quickie, I hate to use up time, but something you may or may not know. The British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and President Roosevelt at that time were very close. President Roosevelt knew that sooner or later the United States was going to be dragged into this conflict, and he wanted to help Great Britain as much as he could, but the responsibility for declaring war rests with the House of Representatives. He couldn't do a thing legally to declare war. But he did the next best thing. He took a lot of our ships and tanks and everything that so-called surplus, and he developed a program you may remember being called Lend-Lease. He lent them to Great Britain, and the security that Great Britain gave to that was a 99-year lease on some remote islands somewhere, because at that time the British Empire was still huge. also sent goods up around Iceland and on to Russia. The United States had bases in Iceland on the route to repair ships. And we took a trip to Iceland, and there was a fellow who was Iceland to the core, okay? And he called that the invasion of Iceland by the United States. But there was a whole lot going on before we got into the war that involved us in the war.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, last item on the page, written by Mara Grace Hacker. A heartfelt wish to you for all phone calls, cards, and personal notes I received on the passing of my son Paul. He was a victim of that killer pancreatic cancer. With my two remaining sons, living one in the Midwest and the other in the East, I have no relatives living in the area. Therefore, I feel truly blessed that over the years, Manzano has become my second family. May God bless you all.
Thank you, Mary Grace. That was sweet. And I think Judith Biner certainly seems like her friend Anne Sabarge, if we're saying that right, is certainly an interesting person to make our acquaintance with. What a background. All right, we're going to move over to the center of the apple barrel, and it lists all of the birthdays for February, and there are a slew of them. Oh, and Rod, I see that you're having a birthday. Bernice Richards already had hers on the 1st. Barbara Swinson birthday was on the 3rd. Jerry McGregor, Bonnie Shippard, that's one I have to remember. Betty Logan, who is on our floor. Joanne Perose, Judith Binder, our bird lady friend. Rodney Boenig, Maria Villaverde, and Sally LaFavor. Mary Lombardo, a slew from 6th floor. Harriet Smitters, Carrie Lee, and Sandra Madden. She will end the month of February. And we're welcoming a new resident to the 3rd floor, Dora Martinez, who has moved into apartment 324. And then Donna Stoner submitted the next paragraph. Have you ever served in the Peace Corps, USAID? And I know Vivian was here just a few minutes ago, and they certainly their hand would go up. Or have you been in a council service, taught school, or were sitting in a foreign country, done embassy work, been a consultant outside the USA, or any live/world experience in a foreign land? We are looking for you to form a group interested in conversation, talk, or tales involving you out of country experience, impressions, and concerns. And then Tom Samuel gives his room number and his phone number and says you can call him with more information if you would be interested in being part of that group. And that would be an interesting one as I said, for the previous person we read about. And then the next one, I think you all rightly said we could just skip, because it's the one that tells us about all the activities, and the one that, and I know you get your books from another source, so you're not interested in the book van, but you might be interested in meditation, which is being held on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and that would be the only one beside the reading of the apple barrel on every Thursday, as long as they're printing the apple barrel. David said, David, you've lived here 7 years. Is that how long? And he said, in all that time, the apple barrel has never been late. And
Until this time.
yeah, and that was the reason why they didn't have the money to pay for the paper, and they had run out of paper.
Yeah. And that,
So it's just so finally Mark, as day went by, and we're not receiving a charge card to do that. He just went to the paper company and bought the paper himself, and so we were able to have an apple barrel this time.
By the way, Mark said in the executive meeting today that Pure Health is giving them more money for things like that than they had previously, from the Samaritan group.
That's
So
good to know.
He said they are financing things like that much more readily. I just share that.
That's good.
Covered the money under.
Yeah. And it'll have to just be established. Fine.
all righty, the next page begins with the schedule for February ministry. And these are the Sunday services at 2 p.m. And they're listing Matthew Miller, Tanya Blankenship, Hannah Scanlon, and David Whiteley. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but Matthew Miller is a Presbyterian minister from First Presbyterian, but outside of that, he is a very talented fellow. And currently, I mean, this is not his first time around, but currently he's starring in The Man from La Mancha, and if that doesn't ring a bell with you, it's maybe Don Quixote will ring a bell. It's essentially the same story. And then moving on, the Wednesday services at 6:30, Rachel Hance, Reverend Jerry Kayuk, Archdeacon Patty Sukup, and Reverend Patty Ebner. And Catholic services, I'm sure anyone that attends already knows this, every first and third Monday at 10 a.m. The celebrant is Father John Paul Oluchi Afuchita, John Paul. And then every Sunday, second and fourth Monday at 10 o'clock, there's a meeting to say a group rosary. Moving on, here's another submission by Mary Gruby. This is Making the House Ready for the Lord. Dear Lord, I have swept and I have washed, but still nothing is as shiny as it should be for you. Under the sink, for example, is an uproar of mice. It is the season of many children. What shall I do? And under the eaves and through the walls, the squirrels have gnawed their ragged entrances. But it is the season when they need shelter. So what shall I do? And the raccoon limps into the kitchen and opens the cupboard while the dog snores. The cat hugs the pillow. What shall I do? Beautiful is the new snow falling in the yard, and the fox, who is staring boldly up the path to the door. And I still believe you will come, Lord. You will when I speak to the fox, the sparrow, the lost dog, the shivering sea goose. Know that really I am speaking to you whenever I say, as I do all morning and afternoon, come in, come in. And finally, something here, the United Women in Faith. This is a group of women that meets here, I think, once a month, and it is non-denominational. It is women of all faith. United Women in Faith invite any interested women to join for a special time of fellowship. We meet the fourth Tuesday of each month in the hobby room from 1:30 to 3. Our February meeting will be on the 25th. For questions or to RSVP, please call or text Sharon Christensen, and there is a phone number given here, and it's written by Sharon Christensen. I know my wife belongs to it, and they had a party in our apartment last week or so on. I think they had about 13 people there. So apparently, despite the fact that free food always brings people, apparently the group is of some size.
Right then, page 9, and we have quite a long magazine today. This is written by Nancy Burns, and the title is "When It's Right, It's Right." Burbank, California was my home for most of my life. After retiring from California Department of Rehabilitation, I continued my education and completed my master's in counseling and psychology. While in California, I established a support group for individuals experiencing vision loss. So that may be of interest to you two friends. And in 1993, I attended a convention of the National Federation of the Blind in Dallas, Texas. And that's where I met Don Burns. The convention hosted a barbecue complete with live Western band, and Don and I danced every dance, and that night we exchanged phone numbers, and 4 months later we were married. We have just celebrated our 31st anniversary. We celebrated our 2nd anniversary on a cruise around the Hawaiian Islands. We were hooked on cruising. We were both visually impaired and used the long white cane. Oh, I've seen that couple. They're delightful. We've sailed through the Panama Canal, sampled coffee in Costa Rica, wine and tapas in Spain, limoncello in Italy, sampled Greek and many other wonderful foods. It's our desire that we have educated the traveling public that we're simply people who love to travel and happen to be blind. Don has joined me in facilitating my support group that I named Creating Options. We currently meet the 3rd Wednesday of each month at the New Mexico Commission for the Blind. Our premise is, for every problem, there is a solution. By discussing issues around blindness in a group setting, many issues have been expressed and many solutions realized. Because of recent health issues, I now use a walker. I am reluctant to cruise with such circumstances, but I never say never. So, who knows? And Nancy wrote her own introduction to Manzano. And so when you see Nancy Burns, will know something about her. That might be fun. If you'd like to know, again, how to get hold of her, I'll surely make that information.
Yeah. When I first moved here, they were still here.
Oh.
And then about a year later, they left. And we never heard any more from them. And now we understand that they were back again. And they said the worst mistake they ever made was leaving Manzano in the first place.
Oh.
At that time, now I'm going back like 10 years. At that time, she was totally blind and he was nearly blind. So I don't know how his blindness has progressed.
Uh-huh.
And she would give talks on how they travel and the techniques they use in counting steps and remembering directions.
Wow.
And that's how they get around like sighted people.
And they do. They're
do.
amazing.
Yeah.
They're just amazing. Oh, thank you, Mary Grace. So that'd be fun to go to any workshop that they have.
Oh, yes.
Even sighted, I think for sighted people that might be very interesting.
Because sighted people don't understand what it is. not to have
Exactly.
I know
And
I've had a lot of people tell me if I had to lose any senses, I would prefer to lose my sight than my hearing. I said, you would?
ooh,
I said, if you
not
lose
I.
your hearing, and you're young enough, you can learn sign, you can read lips.
Right.
You can write and communicate that way. But I said, walk around one 24-hour day with a blindfold on. What other alternative do you have? There is no alternative if you lose your sight.
That's right. That's right. And David well knows that you can arrive here with sight and then begin to lose it. And how many of our friends have we seen them beginning now? They've dropped out of bridge because they can no longer see the cards, or the shape of the cards, or so. So they're a wealth of information, aren't
Oh,
they?
yes.
The gift shop news from our darling Debbie. Valentine's Day is such a fun time of the year. We get to share the love. In the store, you'll find some great cards and Valentine gifts. Brooches are in, and we have such a nice selection. We have some great scarves, too. Gift certificates are also available. With each purchase of a gift certificate, you can pick a card from the 50-cent rack at no charge. So, share the love. For one-of-a-kind gifts, you can be sure that it's in the store. Our prices are reasonable, too. Happy Valentine's Day, and God bless. Written by Debbie Harrington, gift shop manager.
Next one is written by Chuck Namath, and it's called Strudel Days. And while I'm sure that the term strudel is familiar to all of you, it may have been a while since you sunk your teeth into it. Strudel is a pastry, usually two layers of dough with a filling, cherries, apples. Apple strudel is probably one of the best known, but oh heck, they've been around for decades, maybe even a century. Okay, anyhow, this is a little bit of reminiscing. All of us have good memories about food. Food when a child, when first visiting the first good restaurant. Most of mine are of my mother's cooking and baking. Of these, one stands out. All of us are familiar with German strudel. My mother made it in Hungarian, and it was pronounced Ritash. Eating it was heavenly, but watching Mother make it was something I have never seen approached. She started by placing a white cloth over our round oak dining table, about 48 inches in diameter. Sprinkling flour liberally on the table, she next plopped a large mound of dough in the middle. She began using a rolling pin until she had the dough spread out some 2 feet or more in diameter. Covering her hands with flowers, she put them under the edge of the dough, palms up, gently pulling on the dough with her outstretched fingers. The dough would stretch and thin. Finally, the dough would be stretched so far that it hung down about a foot or more all around, and it was thin and opaque. You couldn't see through it, even if it was thin. Light would flow through it, but you couldn't see through it. Time for the filling. As I remember, Mom made 3 dessert flavors: cottage cheese, poppy seed and walnuts, and apple raisin. But by far my favorite Friday no-meat entree, fried cabbage strudel. Never in my experience, I'll be honest with you there. She would sprinkle a mixture, mostly sour cream, all over the dough. Then she spread the filling out until the entire tabletop was covered. She had several baking pans about 7 by 11. Grasping the cloth at the bottom hanging down, she would lift the dough and it began to roll up into 2 long cylinders. Placing a frying pan, she measured the cut and cut the dough, placing 3 or 4 into each baking pan. Then brushing the top of each roll with sour cream, into the oven they went. When done, she removed them from the oven, brushed sour cream on the top, and then, of course, sprinkled the top with sugar. The taste was heavenly. The sugar was flaky, as thin and as tissue paper, and would melt in your mouth. How the world changes. After the war ended, Mom found she had a problem. The white flour was now enriched, and it would not stretch as out intended. Holes would appear. I was now living in Colorado, and I started searching for a mill that ground flour in the old way. In Pueblo, that's in Colorado, a small mill made such flour, and it was called Hungarian flour. I supplied Mom with Hungarian flour, but soon that also succumbed to the enrichment process. I have tried to make strudel 7 times using phyllo dough. I have no idea what that is, which can be found in the freezer department of supermarkets. It's close, but no cigar. There was something about the fried cabbage strudel I cannot describe. I would think that it would be indescribable. It is a most satisfying and delicious meal. Sometimes my wife will make pasta noodles with fried cabbage. It always brings back memories of watching Mom make strudel. Written by Chuck Nemeth.
Helping Hands is an article written by your dining friend Ron Friedrich. And he is reminding us that it's still available. A group of your fellow residents is available called the Helping Hands team to offer you some free services not provided by the maintenance or transportation folks. The team can support you in 4 ways. 1, it will visit you if you'd like a visit from a team member. Or 2, simple errands if you need a few items from Sprouts or True Value, but you have difficulty getting there. 3, if you need a hand in your apartment, such as difficulty opening a tight jar lid, hanging pictures, which are not too heavy or large, or reaching a high shelf. And the 4th way that they help is by other assistance requests will be considered. No request for transportation, nor medical assistance of any kind. Phones, TV, or computers, they will not come and help you with those. You must sign up in resident services, include your name, phone number, and type of helping hands you need, and you will be contacted. The team consists of Ron Friedrich, coordinator, Edna Cassman, Barbara Laswell, David Shea, Carolyn Brislin, and Michael Gottwald. For services we do not provide, one option is ACE Handyman Services, and then they've provided the phone number. But you all have a direct, you can directly request one from your dinner friend, Ron. Now the back of the newsletter, I think we won't do because you really would need to use your vision.
I agree.
And it's been submitted by Valerie Dalton. Valerie is and it's regarding Black History Month. It's a quiz. And so it says it's celebrating African American inventors whose contributions made our lives easier. And I know that that we know several of them who just have done incredible things, and so it would be something to take part in. She ends it by saying she has listed an aerospace engineer, the man who was an ophthalmologist and laser scientist who invented a device and technique to remove cataracts. And they are, I don't know if these names are familiar to you at all: Marie Van Britten Brown, Philip Downing, Frederick McKinley Jones, Mark Dean, Lonnie Johnson, Patricia Bath, Onesimus, and James Bauer. And then you're to match those 8 names with the description of the person below. So I think it would be a little tough. And then there's going to be a part 2, which will be available next month. So it's an interesting thing and
I
challenge.
think you missed this, however.